Hi, I'm Ritika Samadar, the Chief Dietitian for Max Healthcare, and I'm here today to break your myth about malnutrition and malnourishment. What we mean by malnutrition is basically not getting the nutrients which your body requires in the right amount. People generally have this belief that it only occurs in poverty, below poverty line, but ideally we have seen that the present statistics says that a lot of children who are staying in the urban society, in the elite class, have malnourishment. So what we actually mean by malnourishment is that though they are getting the adequate amount of macronutrients, which is their calories, fats and proteins, but when it comes to their micronutrients, which is all your vitamins and minerals which are required in very small amount, generally the diet is not sufficient in that. So today probably we'll break this myth about how to get a balanced diet and get not only your macronutrients but also your micronutrients from your diet. What exactly happens when we talk about malnourishment? A child who has a diet which is full of junk foods, which is very highly concentrated in calories and fats, but does not have the micronutrients, will actually lead to a lot of malnourishment, which is he gets a deficiencies of lot of micronutrients. When we talk about micronutrients, we generally talk about minerals and vitamins like zinc and iron and calcium. These are minerals which are required in very small amounts but are very essential for a normal metabolic activity. So probably when we talk about something like an iron deficiency, people generally relate it to anemia, that is low in blood levels, but ideally when we talk about iron deficiency in children, it leads to a low in their mental capability, it leads to memory loss, the child becomes more irritable and his alertness in class is much less. Similarly, when we talk about the other nutrients like calcium, which is very prevalent in the children, the deficiency of calcium because of low intake of calcium in the diet, the implications of it is of course that the bone mass density goes on the low, and though the child will not be able to realize it then, but probably 40-50 years down the line when he becomes an adult, he or she becomes more prone to osteoporosis or a low bone mass density. Similarly, when we talk about micronutrients like zinc, which are required in micrograms, which is very minimal amount, but is very essential for the immunity level of the child. So that's how we see that even the child might be eating a lot of food, the quantity of food which he's eating is really high, but falls prey to infections time and again, has a high incidence of fevers and infections, and the simple reason for that is that probably his immunity level is very low. And the best way to get your immunity level is of course by eating a very healthy balanced diet, which you not get from the junk foods but from eating lots of fruits and vegetables, or so-called the balanced diet, which are adequate both in macronutrients as well as the micronutrients. The best indicator is that if the child is underweight or even if the child is overweight, these are the two indicators which actually tell us whether the child needs a special kind of care or not. Of course, if the child is underweight, that is growing below his recommended weight, then of course there might be some kind of deficiency. But even most of the time we see, even if the child is above weight or is overweight, he would definitely have some deficiencies. Of course, there are no visual signs of deficiencies, and probably once you come and consult your doctor, there are certain tests which are actually being prescribed for children, like getting the albumin levels or probably getting your vitamins and mineral level count done in your blood, and that's the indication that probably from there on we can take it forward. If the child is found to be deficient in certain nutrients, ideally it can be overcome by just providing a healthy diet. So one should not start with the supplements right at the beginning, just improving on the diet, because the child is able to absorb nutrients very well, and therefore probably just doing a little modifications in the diet itself will make all the difference. And of course the guidelines being, first is to follow a balanced healthy diet. What we mean by a healthy balanced diet is of course breaking the meals into small frequent ones. So you ideally look in for 3 major meals with 2 in between meals. Breakfast becomes the most important meal of the day, and the kind of breakfast the child has actually has a huge impact on his whole day's activity level, as well as his requirement of calories and proteins and the micronutrients. So ideally when we look for a healthy breakfast, we talk about milk being very essential with some good source of carbohydrates. The third being, of course, fruits and vegetables to be taken in plenty, and what we actually recommend to a child is what is called the rainbow diet. That is, more the color you incorporate into the diet of a child, the more healthy the child would be, because fruits and vegetables are the best sources of vitamins and minerals, and more colorful the fruit and vegetable is, and the seasonal fruit and vegetable is, the higher is the content of antioxidants in it. So that is one of the basics which we need to follow. And of course, besides this, just eating a normal healthy home cooked food is what exactly the child needs. The quantity is not so much important as compared to what we call the quality of the food. So even if your child is not eating too much of a quantity, but if he is able to have all the food groups, that means he is having his milks, and he is having his cereals, he is having his pulses or dals, he is having his non-vegetarian food, he is having his eggs, he is having his dried nuts like fruits like your almonds and walnuts, he is having fruits and vegetables, I think he is having a complete diet. Ideally, when we talk about the child's diet, just eating a normal, healthy, fresh food itself would be able to meet the entire requirement of the child. But yes, if the child has been found to be deficient in some of the nutrients, then probably he would require a little support or help with the supplements which are available. Also, we generally get to see in the urban society, because probably due to lack of time, or probably because of the lack of availability of the fresh fruits and vegetables, there are certain kind of deficiencies of the micronutrients which are very commonly seen in the urban society. So in those cases, yes, having the supplements which are ideally added on with these micronutrients, specifically your zinc, selenium, calcium and iron, does help you to make the child's diet more complete. Junk food in today's world has become an integral part of everybody's life. So obviously one cannot completely avoid or completely restrain oneself from the junk foods. But yes, you need to take a middle path. We all know the junk foods are not healthy because they are just providing us with what is called the calories and the fats. There are no other kind of nutrients which are present in that. So first and foremost, as a parent, what you need to do is, one, do not substitute the major meals with the junk food. So make sure that the child is not having his burgers or chips or an aerated drink when he is having his major meals, that is his breakfast, lunch and dinner. Ideally, these should come in as an in-between snack in case he wants it. And the second, which is very, very important, is you should actually get into a routine. So, there should be certain rules which need to be followed at the house, that probably the child is eating a very, very healthy food for 6 days in a week. One day the child can be allowed to go in and binge and have what he or she likes. So probably he can go and have his junk food. But yes, moderation is the key word, and we all know that at the end of the day the junk foods are not healthy, so you really need to cut down on the quantity as well as the amount which he is having. When we talk about making a child eat a very healthy diet, these habits are inculcated at a very young age, and they start right at home, and the child actually copies his parents. So ideally what we recommend is, if you want your child to eat a very healthy food, you must actually sit down with your child on the dining table and eat together with him, and you and the child should be eating the same kind of food right from the beginning. That is, even when a child is 1 year old, he or she should be eating the same kind of food which his parents are eating. So if the parents are eating a normal healthy diet, there is no way that the child can go wrong and probably eat an unhealthy food. First is, of course, start the day right. So having a proper breakfast, and the ideal breakfast would be a combination of protein with carbohydrates. And the proteins for the breakfast, the right protein for the breakfast is, of course, having a glass of milk, and the carbohydrates should ideally come from some complex carbohydrates. So a porridge or a multigrain bread is something which we are looking forward to. Lots of fruits, so make sure the fruits are not in the major meals but can come in as in between snack times and fillers for your children. So it can be incorporated as in between snacks in the mid mornings and the mid evenings and the late nights. Lunch and dinner is the most important meal for your child, and make sure when the child has his lunch and dinner, the quality of the food is very good. That is, what we are looking for is all the 5 important nutrients, that is carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, minerals and fat, all are present in each of the meals. So ideally we are looking for something like roti, dal, sabzi, salads and dahi, which gets you all your micro and the macronutrients. Similarly for your dinner, Ideally, the dinner should be not very late. It should be taken as early as possible, because the body works in such a mode that in the morning the basal metabolic rate is very high, so the body is able to digest the food very well, but as the day progresses the body slows down. So ideally you should not be going in for very heavy meals and late meals late in the evening, because that causes a lot of indigestion and causes later chronic illnesses later on in life. The last, of course, no diet or no kind of eating pattern is complete until and unless you lead a very healthy, active lifestyle. So the child should be encouraged to have some kind of active lifestyle, that is either playing or jogging or doing any kind of aerobic activities at least for half an hour to 45 minutes in a day, because that will help him to burn out the calories which he is been consuming through the day. So talking about 5 healthy tips which every parent need to follow so that the child is able to lead a very healthy life. First being that start the day right. Ensure that your child starts his day right by eating the right kind of breakfast in the morning and not avoiding or skipping his breakfast. Second is, of course, incorporate lots of fruits and vegetables in your child diet. Ideal recommendations are about 5 to 9 servings a day. More colorful the fruit and vegetable is, the more healthier it is for the child. The third is, of course, skipping a meal is something which needs to be avoided completely in a child's day's routine. Make sure that he has small frequent meals, which is very, very healthy for the child. Fourth is, of course, proteins, or what we called proteins are something which is very, very important for the child's diet, and because he is at a growing age, so make sure that there is a lot of dals or milk or non-veg in your child's diet, because that will help him to grow faster and be more healthy in his life. And the last thing is, which is very, very important, though water or hydration is not considered as an important nutrient, but it is one of the most important nutrient when we consider a child's diet, because it helps us not only to remove the toxins from our body, but also helps the child to be hydrated. And as children, they are not able to actually differentiate between hydration and dehydration, so that becomes a kind of medical emergency in a lot of cases. So make sure that your child is well hydrated throughout the day.